Jay-Z is worth billions, but very little of that wealth sits idle. Instead, he has poured it into businesses, real estate, art, and investments that continue to grow over time. The way Jay-Z spends his money reveals the strategy that helped build one of music's greatest fortunes. Let's start with the easiest place to see the money: real estate. Because when Jay-Z buys a house, he doesn't really buy a house. He buys a statement. Back in 2017, he and Beyoncé closed on a mansion in Bel Air. That became the highest-selling transaction of 2017 in Los Angeles County, since David Geffen's $85 million Malibu home. The number attached to it was $88 million, and the place wasn't some old Hollywood relic. It came with 30,000 square feet of living space, a spa, a media room, 4 outdoor swimming pools, and a full-sized basketball court. Now, here's the part that surprises people. They didn't just write a check. Records show the Carters paid for the sprawling estate through blind trusts and have built up a mortgage of around $52.8 million. A couple worth close to $2 billion, taking out tens of millions in mortgage debt on their own home. That's not because they needed the loan. That's because leaving cash in a house is the least efficient thing a billionaire can do. And Jay-Z has never been about efficiency for its own sake. He's about leverage. The house itself wasn't a quick decision either. Before they landed on Bel Air, the couple spent no less than 3 years looking for their dream home and lived in a string of ultra-expensive rentals till they found and zeroed in on their $88 million newly built Bel Air estate. Before that, they'd even lived somewhere unexpected, a 13,000 sq-ft home in New Orleans, which was once a Presbyterian church with towering 10-meter ceilings and vast windows. Then, years later, they went even bigger. In 2023, they bought a mansion in Malibu, and this one broke records across the entire state. It was revealed the property deal was the most expensive home in the state of California, breaking the old record of $177 million. And, get this, Jay and Beyoncé opted to buy it with cash. $200 million. No mortgage, no financing, just cash for a house sitting on 8 acres of coastline. The former owner had spent nearly 15 years building it, designed by an architect known for concrete minimalism, and it had been listed for close to $300 million before the Carters got it down. Here's what's wild. This wasn't even their first offer on a giant house in that neighborhood. Before they landed the Bel Air estate, they'd actually put in a bid on a different mansion nearby, offering $120 million for a place that was a stunning hilltop Bel Air mansion that boasts 4 pools, 8 bedrooms, and even bulletproof windows. That deal didn't go through, but it shows the pattern. When Jay-Z house hunts, he's not shopping in a normal price range. He's shopping in the range where the sale itself becomes news. And the Bel Air house wasn't done costing money after they bought it. Years later, reports surfaced that the couple had taken out an additional mortgage on the same property, and the total borrowing on the property, which they bought in 2018, has now reached $110 million on a house they paid $88 million for. That's the kind of number that makes an ordinary person's head spin, but to a portfolio built on leverage, it's just another instrument. The interest rate on that new loan sits around 5% for the first 10 years, equaling around $310,000 per month. $310,000 every single month just in interest on a home they already own outright in equity terms many times over. So why keep borrowing against houses you don't need to borrow against? Because in the world Jay-Z operates in, real estate isn't where the wealth grows fastest. It's where the wealth sits while other assets, champagne brands, cognac stakes, tech shares, do the heavy lifting. The house is the trophy case, not the engine. And that distinction is the entire key to understanding how his money actually moves. But a house, even a $200 million one, is still just a container. To understand where Jay-Z's millions are really going, you have to follow the man beyond the walls of Bel Air and Malibu, into the businesses he built from nothing, because that's where the real spending and the real returns start to show up. If real estate is the trophy case, then liquor is the vault. And nowhere is Jay-Z's spending as investing strategy clearer than in the two drinks he made famous: Armand de Brignac Champagne and Douce Cognac. Start with the champagne. Most people know it by its street name, Ace of Spades. And most people assume Jay-Z just slapped his name on a label for a paycheck. He didn't. Armand de Brignac started its relationship with the rapper in 2006, when the champagne bottle premiered in his "Show Me What You Got" music video, before officially launching later that year. That was the seed. 8 years later, in 2014, he went further and bought the entire brand outright. He didn't flip it fast either. He spent years building it into something bigger than a bottle, turning it into a symbol you'd see in every music video, every celebration, every party where money was meant to be seen. Then, in 2021, he cashed in a chunk of it. He sold a 50% stake to LVMH's Moet Hennessy at a valuation of $640 million, netting approximately $315 million while keeping half the brand. $315 million in cash, and he still owns half the company. That's not a sale. That's a partial cash out while keeping the upside. Now, the cognac, Douce, launched back in 2012 through a partnership with Bacardi, and for over a decade, it grew quietly in the shadow of the champagne. Then came the number that actually pushed Jay-Z's fortune into a different stratosphere. In a conversation about the deal, he laid out exactly what happened, explaining that he took $750 million cash for 25% of his Douce stake, meaning his half was worth $1.5 billion. With the full enterprise valued at $3 billion. Even though Bacardi initially told him it was worth considerably less, prompting him to reply that he'd buy their stake at that price. That's not just a business deal. That's a negotiation where he called their bluff and won. The mechanics of the sale were precise. Bacardi ended up owning the majority, with reports showing Bacardi purchased 25.1% of Jay-Z's stake, increasing its ownership to 75.1%, while Jay retained a 24.9% minority position. With the transaction based on the full $3 billion valuation Jay had been pushing for. He didn't just take the money and walk away. He kept a quarter of a company now worth $3 billion. Meaning that stake alone continues to appreciate every single year without him lifting a finger. Combine both drink deals and you get a number that stops conversations. Between the champagne and the cognac, he pulled in over $1 billion combined. From products, he turned into cultural artifacts before selling them to the world's largest luxury conglomerates. And that's not counting the equity he still holds in both. This is where the how he spends his millions question flips on its head. Because the spending isn't really spending, it's positioning. He didn't buy a champagne brand to drink champagne, he bought it to control a category, let culture do the marketing for free, and then sell the appreciation to a conglomerate with global distribution reach he could never build alone. Same with the cognac, same really with everything else in his portfolio. And that portfolio doesn't stop at liquor. It bleeds into fashion, into streaming, into ride-sharing apps, into a streetwear label he started before most people even knew his name. Which brings us to the next layer of where the money actually flows, the tech bets and brand exits that turned a rapper into a business. Before the champagne, before the cognac, there was a clothing line most people forget was ever his. Rocawear launched in 1999, years before Jay-Z the Mogul was a phrase anyone used. It became a dominant force in streetwear, and in 2007, he sold it for $204 million. That deal alone would have made most people set for life. For Jay-Z, it was just the opening move. 4 years after selling Rocawear, he did something almost nobody clocked as significant at the time. In 2011, he put a small amount of money into a scrappy ride-sharing startup out of San Francisco called Uber. Different sources put the number at either $2 million or describe it as an early conviction bet rather than a calculated one, with one breakdown noting the Uber investment in 2011 wasn't analysis. It was a small bet on a team that believed they were rewriting urban transportation, and that founder conviction read is teachable. Either way, the payoff dwarfed the original check. The ride-sharing app company is now worth nearly $60 billion, and Jay's stake in the company is valued at around $70 million. Then came streaming. In 2015, he bought a struggling Scandinavian platform called Aspiro and relaunched it under a name everyone now knows, Tidal. He paid $56 million for it, and for years critics said it was his one real misstep, a vanity project competing against giants with far bigger budgets. But 6 years later, he proved even a failed streaming war could still be an exit strategy. In 2021, he sold the majority of it to Jack Dorsey's Square, and in March 2021, Jay-Z sold 80% of Tidal for $302 million to co-founder and former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, while Jay still owns the other 20% of the company. He turned a $56 million bet into a $300 million payday and kept a slice for himself. The pattern doesn't stop with tech and fashion. He's quietly built a stake in some names people wouldn't expect, from a rapper's portfolio at all, beyond D'Ussé and the Champagne. His investment sheet also runs through a 50% stake in Armand de Brignac, D'Ussé Cognac Insurance startup Ethos, and salad chain Sweetgreen, along with holdings in Uber, SpaceX, and Square, a cognac insurance startup, and a salad chain sitting in the same portfolio as SpaceX. That's not a celebrity dabbling. That's someone with actual money managers running a diversified book. Then there's Roc Nation, the company most people think of as his. Even though it isn't a single asset, it's a machine. Founded back in 2008, it's grown into a full-service operation that manages artists, including Rihanna, manages athletes across the NFL and NBA through Roc Nation Sports, and produces the Super Bowl halftime show through a long-term NFL partnership, generating estimated annual revenues exceeding $100 million. That's a business that runs whether or not Jay-Z records a single new verse. What ties Uber, Tidal, Roc Nation, Ethos, and Sweetgreen together isn't randomness. It's a formula. Get in early, let the brand or the technology mature, then either sell the position at a premium or hold it as a cash-generating machine. It's the same instinct that made the liquor deals work, just applied to industries that have nothing to do with music at all. But money isn't only about accumulation. At some point, the story of how he spends his millions has to include the things he can't sell for a profit, the things he buys because they mean something, not because they'll appreciate on a spreadsheet. And that's where the art comes in. Somewhere between the champagne deals and the mortgage payments, Jay-Z became one of the more serious private art collectors in the world, and this is the part of his spending that has almost nothing to do with return on investment, at least not on paper. It starts, like most things with him, in the lyrics before it shows up in the collection. By mentioning artists like Rothko, Basquiat, Warhol, Picasso, and Koons, he bridges the gap between music and visual arts, enriching his lyrics with cultural and artistic allusions that serve as hallmarks of his unique style. He was talking about art in his rhymes years before people knew he was actually buying it. Then, in 2013, he didn't just reference Basquiat, he bought him. He acquired the artwork Mecca at Sotheby's, making the purchase for $4.2 million, a piece capturing a New York cityscape with the word Empire elegantly inscribed at the top, beneath Basquiat's distinctive crown signature. That single canvas has since become one of the anchor pieces in the whole collection, and its value has climbed dramatically since he wrote the check. One estimate puts it at over $20 million, up from the roughly $4.5 million he originally paid. That same year, he took the art conversation somewhere no rapper had gone before, into the gallery itself, as a performance. In 2013, he staged an hours-long piece where he performed his song Picasso Baby live at Pace Gallery in New York, repeating the melody incessantly for 6 hours straight, with curator Klaus Biesenbach, artist Marina Abramovich, and critic Jerry Saltz among those who made the trip to see it. That's not a music video. That's a man buying his way, literally and culturally, into a room full of critics who'd never taken hip-hop seriously as art before. The collection itself, built alongside Beyoncé, reads like the checklist of a museum board member rather than a celebrity's living room decor. It reportedly spans Jean-Michel Basquiat, Andy Warhol, Richard Prince, Damien Hirst, Tim Noble, Sue Webster, George Condo, Laurie Simmons, David Hammonds, Ed Ruscha, and more. Some of it isn't just collected. Some of it was made for them specifically, with reports noting their private art collection includes commissioned pieces, including 2 Damien Hirst paintings made just for them. In 2021, the art moved from private walls to public advertising in a way that turned heads across the fashion and art worlds at once. Beyoncé and Jay-Z posed in front of a painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat for a widely publicized advertisement for Tiffany & Co. And the piece behind them wasn't a loan from a museum. Prior to the campaign, the painting had been kept in private possession for a long time. That's the Carter money on full display. Not just owning masterpieces, but choosing when the world gets to see them. Even smaller purchases tell the same story of a man who treats galleries the way other rich people treat car dealerships. Back in 2012 at Art Basel in Miami, he reportedly purchased a Habru Brantley painting for $20,000, a fraction of what he'd later spend on Basquiat. But proof the habit started small and grew with the fortune. 5 years after that, he and Beyoncé were spotted checking out work by a different artist entirely at a New York exhibit, showing the collecting wasn't a one-time flex. It was an ongoing hobby that happened to double as an asset class. Why does any of this matter to the bigger question of how Jay-Z spends his millions? Because art is one of the only places in his portfolio where the value isn't obvious the day he buys it. A cognac steak has a valuation. A house has a mortgage statement. A painting just sits on a wall until decades later, when it's suddenly worth 5 times what he paid. Or when it becomes a museum-quality centerpiece that outlives every business deal he ever signed. It's wealth that doesn't need a press release to keep growing. But not every dollar Jay-Z moves is designed to come back to him. Some of it is designed to go out the door for good, into scholarships, into causes, into other people's kids getting a shot at college he never had. And that side of the ledger tells a very different story about where the money actually ends up. So after the houses, the champagne, the cognac, the tech stakes, and the art, where does any of it actually land for someone who isn't named Carter? Back in 2003, Jay-Z and his mother, Gloria Carter, set up something with a much smaller number attached to it than any of the deals we've covered so far. The Sean Carter Foundation was founded by the legendary rapper and his mother in 2003, built around a much simpler idea than a liquor conglomerate. Get kids from backgrounds like his into college. 2 decades later, the foundation marked that milestone with a single night that raised more than the entire fund had given away in its first 10 years combined. That gala pulled in $20 million to help individuals dealing with socioeconomic hardships pursue their education at post-secondary institutions. The names writing checks that night said a lot about who Jay-Z's circle actually is. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his fiancée Lauren Sanchez contributed a $10 million legacy donation, while Twitter founder Jack Dorsey donated $2 million. The same Dorsey, worth noting, who bought the majority of Tidal off him years earlier, showing how these relationships loop back around. Business partner one year, charitable donor the next. It wasn't only about scholarships that night either. The foundation used the moment to expand its reach into something more political, announcing a partnership with Robert Kraft's foundation to combat anti-Semitism, to stop the nationwide ban on books, and protect educational freedom, with both organizations contributing $1 million to advocate for free speech and intellectual learning, while Fanatics and Live Nation contributed an additional $500,000 each. Go back to the foundation's earliest years, and the numbers look almost quaint next to everything else in this story. A decade in, reporting found the group had given away $1.3 million over 10 years, a modest figure set against a fortune that was already worth hundreds of millions at the time. But modest doesn't mean meaningless. Individual scholarships through the fund have historically run $1,500 to $2,500 for every student who qualifies, with recipients able to reapply and receive support all the way from admission to graduation. By one count, over the life of the foundation, it had handed out over 750 scholarship awards, amounting to over $1.7 million. Small individual checks that added up to real degrees for real people. The scholars themselves describe what those checks meant in terms that have nothing to do with net worth. One recipient put it plainly, saying the support was the reason they became a first-generation college graduate for my family. Another described how being denied scholarships before finally getting one from the foundation left them feeling like anything is possible. That's the arc of the whole story, really? The same fortune that bought a $200 million house in Malibu with cash also funds a scholarship check under $3,000 for a kid, trying to be the first in their family to walk across a graduation stage. The same instincts that turned a bet on Uber into $70 million are the instincts behind negotiating with Bacardi until the number hit $3 billion. And the same eye that spotted value in a struggling streaming app in 2015 is the eye that spotted value in a Basquiat canvas 2 years before that. Jay-Z's money moves in two directions at once, outward into things that grow and outward into people who need a start. The houses and the art and the liquor stakes keep compounding whether he's paying attention or not. The foundation keeps handing out 3-figure and 4-figure checks that change single lives one at a time. Neither side of that ledger is finished. The Bel Air mansion still carries its loan, the Doucet stake still climbs in value every quarter, and somewhere right now, another kid from a neighborhood that looks like Marcy Houses is filling out an application, hoping their name gets called next.